Hi everyone, I hope you're well. I know I haven't made a video in a really long time, but this is something that I was supposed to do a long time ago. I'm talking last February. So February, March 2019, the Lord gave me a word and I didn't release it. I wasn't obedient because I was afraid. And I'm still afraid. I still don't want to release it in certain ways because it's heavy. It's really heavy. And I have literally wrestled with this word this entire time. And it's made me miserable not releasing it. I have to be obedient and do what I feel that I'm supposed to be doing inside. And I guess I did one of those Jonah moments trying to run away from it, and it's caught up with me. So here is the word that the Lord gave me. So last year I went to sleep as normal. I had very lucid dream, like their kind of dream. I was in the United States in this dream, and I don't know the exact state, but I believe that I was in around Kansas area, and I was in a farm, in a field, and it was a beautiful day. The sky was so nice and blue, so I know it was around summertime or springtime. It was just a really nice day. And I was in a field with a farmer, and the farmer was telling me something, and he looked at me and he said, I have to tell you something that is coming, and I have to show you. You're not going to understand some of it, but I'm going to explain it to you the best I can. You need to take note of this because this is going to affect the entire world. So this is what he showed me. I saw a field of corn, huge fields and fields and fields of corn. And yet, on the corn, on the outset, that it looked like it had been growing and obviously reached a certain height, there was something going on within the genetic structure of the corn that was causing a animal to flourish. So he explained it to me like this, and I'm going to try and explain it the best way I know how because I'm not a scientist, so it's very science heavy. So basically, with the onset of GMO, they have basically tried to modify the crops, as we know, to repel certain pests without putting pesticides on them, right? And so they're supposed to be better, they're supposed to grow quicker and faster, they're supposed to be resistant to drought and to pestilence and all these other things. However, there is a problem. This farmer told me that they have been putting forth to people like Monsanto and the other people who make these GMO for a very long time, but they have been ignored. They've been fobbed off and ignored. And it's going to get so bad that they will not be able to ignore it anymore. So what has happened is that there is a certain bug that had been killed off because of the GMO. They didn't get completely wiped out. They didn't get wiped out of existence completely, but the numbers diminished basically. And over time, it seemed like these crops were really doing what they're supposed to do, make it easier for the farmers so they don't have to put pesticides and all of these other things on it. However, what they underestimated is that the corn itself is genetically modifying the bugs. So the genetically modified corn, when the bugs do feed off it, it changes the structure of their DNA, and then they pass that structure down to their larvae, and that gets modified again, and it keeps going. So scientists would call this like evolution. This is not evolution, this is adaptation. And the farmer in the dream was very, very strict on that. He said, well, they would talk about evolution and how, organisms like survive and adapt, and, they evolve into different things. This is not evolution, this is adaptation. So what has happened is that there's a particular bug that thrives on corn that had diminished in its numbers. However, it didn't get completely wiped out. And what happened, I saw through this dream, it was the most incredible thing I have ever seen in my life, and scary. I saw the entire life cycle and the survival of this bug with this GMO corn. I first saw this bug die off of the corn, but it wasn't completely wiped out. Its larvae, something survived. That was then born, and then it hatched and fed off of the corn. And after it survived a little bit longer than its parent, it survived just long enough to breed, and it quickly died. It died very quickly. So then the next life cycle, it happened again. They hatched, they ate off of the corn, they survived just a little bit longer this time. And it kept going on and on and on. And I cannot remember how many life cycles he said it was, but it was a lot of life cycles. This was over years and years. There's a lot of life cycles that these bugs went through. And every life cycle, they survived just enough to breed and to lay eggs again. Just enough time to keep the species going, but not enough that they would become like a pestilence or a plague. Just enough to have, their survival keep going. For every life cycle, more and more survived. Every life cycle. Every life cycles, I looked and I saw inside these bugs, and I literally saw their genetic structure change, literally. For every single life cycle, they got hardier. And the outside, it wasn't just the inside, it meant the next life cycle, the next one, they were harder on the outside. So the outside of this bug was tougher than it had been many life cycles ago. And it kept continuing on and on and on until it got to the point that these bugs were so resistant, they were then called super resistant bugs. They became super resistant because their genetic structure was changed from feeding off the corn, because something in the corn, the genetically modified corn, was obviously not natural. There's something in there that was physically changing the structure of their DNA. So every time they fed off of it, yeah, they would die quickly, but the next one, they would die a little less, and they got hardier and tougher and tougher and tougher. And then the farmer said to me, they realized that it started to become a problem, and they had to think of ways to get rid of these bugs, because too many of them, they would decimate all the crops. And what happened with these bugs as well, something started to physically change in them. They were able to fly longer and longer distances where their predecessors, they just couldn't do that before. This is the changes that were going on inside them. So they were able to go to other crops, other farms, further and further away, because they became hard on the outside. They were resistant to the weather patterns that they before weren't that resistant to, you see, because God had set everything in nature to be in balance. And once you put something out of balance like that, these bugs, the rain and the hurricanes, and it didn't stop. their species from flourishing. Whereas before, the natural life cycles of the weather would cause these bugs to like die down, and then so it would just always keep their numbers in check. God has set something in nature to keep these numbers in check naturally, but because the corn was unnatural, it had caused DNA structure within this bug, so it becomes super resistant and super hardy on the outside. It could fly further, it could live longer, and it wouldn't just resist some pesticides, it was resisting the old pesticides that used to be able to easily kill these bugs. And that's what the farmer was showing me. He was showing me that not even the old pesticides that we used to use to kill them, it does not kill them. It's like nothing to them now. They just keep flourishing. And then he said, okay, we had to like find all these different types of pesticides, and we keep trying and trying, and they keep flourishing because they breed and die really quickly. And for every cycle, they get hardier and hardier and hardier. And they had given samples to Monsanto and all these other places, and they had been ignored. No, it's not going to be an issue. They just got fobbed off like it was nothing. And it had become a problem. And he said, nobody knows about this problem. You will not see it in the media. You will not hear it in the news. Nobody is talking about this problem because they do not think that it is a problem. But I tell you that it is a problem. And then boom, in that dream, I saw the gravity and the severity of the problem. These bugs were now becoming everywhere. They were decimating not just the crops in that farmer's field, not just the crops in the next farmer's field, because they are so tiny and they are so small. They can be stowaways on when you transport them before they wouldn't be able to make the journey overseas. When you transport corn, they're so small, sometimes they go unnoticed. They usually wouldn't resist the cold. They usually wouldn't resist extreme heat. They normally wouldn't be able to fly as far as they can. But now they can because they've been feeding off of this unnatural rubbish for so many life cycles. They have literally changed. They're almost an entirely new type of bug. They're not exactly what they were before. They are super, super resistant. So then when they get to the next location overseas, they're not dead. They wake up, and you only need 2, and they breed like crazy, and they breed really, really fast. I'm showing you this picture for an illustration. These are corn flea beetles. I don't know if the bugs are corn flea beetles, what they are. I was never told. I saw something more like this. I saw the larvae like this, and I saw the life cycle like this. So I am assuming it's a corn flea beetle or something like this. I know it was really small, very, very, very small bug. But when I looked out over the field, I could just see big blobs of black. And I said, what is that? And he said, that is millions, millions of them. And then I saw what's going to happen. So, everyone, there's going to be a famine. And this is not going to just be a famine in America. This is going to be, and it's going to start there. That's exactly where it's starting. There's going to be a famine everywhere. This is going to spread around the world in every single continent of the world, and it's going to be unstoppable. Unstoppable. And this is what really scared me. This is what scared me the most, is because the famine was huge. When you think about just corn, it wasn't just corn in the end. It started with corn, and then it went to wheat, and then it went to the trees, and because they're super resistant, they just went to everything that you can imagine. Before you knew it, I saw queues and queues and queues of people lining up for rations because there wasn't enough food to go around. There just wasn't enough produce. There were factory things, but there was not enough fresh food. This is a famine of freshness. This is a famine of real corn and wheat and lettuce and fruit and tomatoes and everything natural and beautiful that can be grown. We are going to go into a famine of these things. I don't know when this is going to take place, but I know that it is going to spread and it is going to affect every single country of the world because everybody trades with each other. And these little things are stowaways and they went everywhere because they're so super resistant. They can literally live in pretty much any environment and thrive. And that's exactly what they did. I saw starvation. I saw people all over the world, especially in the third world countries, more than ever. I just saw people that you would never think there would be famine in those countries. You would never think there would be starvation in the United States or in Australia or anywhere else. But I saw people starving, hungry, not because they didn't have enough money, not because of coronavirus or anything, but because of this famine. And I saw nothing left. The entire crops, they ate the roots, they ate everything. They could not plant quick enough. They couldn't do anything. They tried to do all the pesticides. Nothing worked. Even just trying to squash them under your foot was difficult. They're like cockroaches. They're hard to kill. They're going to survive. They could survive pretty much anything. And that's what I saw. And I saw that people were dying like all over the world from hunger and they didn't need to. And this is the word of the Lord, is because you swapped the natural for the unnatural. You've taken matters into your own hands. You tried to change the times and you tried to change the seasons. And you try to control things and think that you're God. You will reap the consequences of your own actions. You will see that you are not God. You will see the consequences of your actions and how it impacts you and how it impacts everybody around you. And you will cry out. You will cry out for manna and there will be no manna. You will cry out for help and there will be no help. You will cry out for food and there will be no food. There will be famine. There will be mass famine throughout the world. Now, what about the people of God? The reason why God wanted me to release this, and I should have released it last year, and I have felt sick to my guts about this dream ever since. The people of God, if you trust in the Lord, you listen to this word, you pray on it, ask the Lord. I saw people who had been stocking up on food, who'd been preparing. Some of you have been stocking up on food and preparing physically. Some of you have been preparing financially, and some of you will be prepared physically and financially by God Himself. He will release this unto you so that you can, in these times, be a blessing to others. You will be okay. Not everyone everywhere is going to die of starvation, but a lot of people are going to die of starvation unnecessarily from the ignorance of man. I don't know how long we have. I have prayed to God about this so much, so much. I've never had a famine dream. I've never had this like on this scale before. I've seen a lot of things and I've released a lot of words, but on this scale, I cannot even emphasize how bad this was. It was very bad. You think coronavirus is bad? It's nothing compared to what's coming. Nothing. I can guarantee you is nothing compared to what's coming. The cry throughout the land, throughout the world was massive. You think the death is bad now? You wait. It was massive. Pray about this. Take it to Him. We may have time to prepare. I don't know. I just know that I had this last year and I should have released the word. And I have been wrestling with it this entire time. I don't want this to be real. There's so many things I have dreamed and I've been told in the past, and it has come to pass. Many years ago, I released a word that there is going to be a plague of sorts among the whole world. And I saw people literally just getting it from being in close proximity to each other. And some of them fainted and recovered, and some of them fainted and then they died. And look where we are now. You could probably still find that video on my channel somewhere. It's probably one of the first ones that I released on this channel. I released that many years ago. I also released warnings for the United States that your fate will be sealed in limestone, and that there was, and this was during the Obama regime, and that there was, I saw a huge tractor just come and just blow everything away, just mow it down, and that the government of the United States is going to be completely transformed and completely changed by this tractor. And I didn't know who it was, but I knew this tractor, this bulldozer, was a person that God was sending into the government of the United States to give the United States a period of time in which to repent. And that after this certain period of time, whatever they did, repent or not, their fate would be sealed in limestone. And then after this period of time, I saw that the United States was split in half. I saw from the top of, I think where Lake Michigan is, there's a fault line that goes all the way down. Have a look at it on Google. There's a fault line, and is one big fault line that then intersects with another. And I looked up the science of it at the time, and if the top fault line goes, it would trigger an earthquake in the bottom one, and literally it would be the country in half. Like there would be a big crevice. Forget the California one. This one's pretty much, you know, in the middle of the country. So to the side a little bit. But that's what I saw as well. And I saw entire buildings falling into this crevice. I saw people, it just happened suddenly out of nowhere. Nobody expected it. And I saw a lot of other things coming as well. And it's all on this channel. You can look at my past videos, it's there. And so look at what's happening in the government now with Trump. Exactly what God showed me has come to pass. And we'll see if he gets reelected, if we have still more of a period of grace. And I pray that we do, because I think y'all need it. So that's the word. That's the word that I've been holding back for all of this time. And I pray to God that it doesn't happen. I pray to God that this isn't true. However, I did look this up and see if it was true. And unfortunately it is. There are certain bugs that are thriving on GMO corn crops that never thrived before, and their numbers are increasing. And I searched and searched. I only was able to find like one real article about it, and it was from a farm itself as well. There were people that responded to it that were from Monsanto, and they basically denied it and said, no, it doesn't really matter. There's not enough science, there's not enough evidence to back this up. And that is exactly what I saw in the dream, that they were all, the scientists were like debating over it. And I know, because I've studied a lot of different things, that one scientist will say one thing and another scientist will come along and refute that, and they both have evidence of their own kind. I have evidence of this. Well, I have evidence that refutes your evidence. Well, I have evidence that refutes that evidence. And then it goes around in circles. And sometimes in science, things never really get resolved and nothing really comes to the surface until it's probably too late, because everybody has like their counter ideas. However, I know science is based on the theory of evolution. Everything they do, all the tests, the carbon dating with archaeologists, everything they do is all based on the theoretical premise of evolution. However, the people that put this out did not base their scientific evidence on evolution. They based it on adaptation, and that is exactly what is happening. It's adaptation, not evolution, and that is why the evidence is refuted and it is put aside, because it doesn't meet up with their narrative and their bias of the evolutionary cycle of life. It doesn't line up. It flies in the face of the evolutionary cycle of life. It actually goes along with adaptation, which these big Monsanto scientists and all the ones who get published in journals, they don't want anything to do with. So this is why nobody really knows about it. Famine is coming. I'm not talking about a spiritual famine. We're already in a spiritual famine. That's already here. We've already been living it a long time. This is a physical famine. What happens in the spiritual gets manifested in the physical, because then you can see for yourself what's been going on in the spiritual the whole time, because people ignore the spiritual. People ignore the spiritual all the time. They ignore what God is saying all the time. And so then we have these things that come out in the natural that literally demonstrate what's been going on in the spiritual this entire time that people have been ignoring. And this is exactly what is going to happen here again. Okay, pray about it. Take this to the Lord. And I'll speak to y'all soon.